Krista, thank you for being here. Always good to connect. And we're talking about in-store displays today for our Cannabis Retail Series. This is like
Yeah.
I don't know, feels like the 50th, but I think it's the 7th or 8th time we've done this.
Mhm.
You've been looking at the data, you've been looking at the insights. Talk a little bit about what strikes you about why in-store display can be so important and impactful.
Yeah, I think like one of the first things that we want to think about is in-store displays play a really crucial role in the way that our stores are visually merchandised. Like these impact how our customer experiences the store as well as their perception of product. So really great visual merchandising is going to position products in a way that highlights their value and their features and benefits that might be relevant to that particular customer. So at the end of the day, in-store displays are really a tool both for the teams who are working in the store as well as for the customer to better understand the product. When we do really great in-store displays, though, we can improve the quality of sale. So when I say like quality of sale, what do I mean? Well, when we think about how we're interacting with our customer, KPIs like average per customer, units per transaction, or the frequency that a consumer comes to the store to purchase are all really great indicators of what our quality of sale is at the store level. And so we want to be able to amplify those results or increase those KPIs to generate better relationships with our customers, as well as more revenue at the store level. So visual merchandising and in-store displays can really impact that quality of sale piece.
Can I ask you a question? Because we're going to dive in, I think, the data and insights from the team at Headsets. Can you give me an example of like outside of cannabis, like maybe companies or stores or brands that do this really well that would resonate or people would like, oh yeah, that is great.
Yeah, I think in-store displays, a really good example that probably most people are familiar with are cosmetic spaces. So Sephora is used as an example all of the time. Technology companies like Best Buy, that kind of thing, we see pretty distinct spaces within stores highlighting products, and those products will show up in a way that is branded relevant to them. So think about like how Sony shows up in Best Buy versus Apple products. And so those are some of the key learnings that we can pull out of those industries and then say, okay, how do we want these products to show up in store? What key features and benefits do we want to communicate to the customer? And how can we capture the customer's attention as well as remain relevant to the budtenders and the team that's working in store when talking through products with customers?
That's super helpful to sort of wrap your head around sort of what, I don't know what an ideal state would look like, but certainly in other parts of the sort of world, how people are doing it really well. And what are the data set like? I guess, is there room for this? Is this something that's absolutely necessary in store? How are cannabis stores doing it right now?
Well, I think one of the things, and this is so topical when we start to look at the total number of stores across Canada, only increasing. And so one of the things that we need to think about as a retailer or brand that is having products highlighted in retail environments is the quality of sale for the customers that we have coming in the door, right? So if we have a customer that's engaged, how are we optimizing that relationship? And so a quick KPI to take a look at that is going to be in our average basket size. So how much are we selling to our customer? Across Canada, these numbers are varying quite a bit. Alberta is kind of the lowest in terms of the average basket size, really for like the month of September, being at about $40, BC at about 41, maybe and a half, and then in Ontario being 52. And so when we start to look at that, we want to say, what is happening in these stores that is different? And how is our customer engaging with product differently in these environments? The average price of the products that are in the stores across Canada ranges from $24 to $27. So that's less than the average per customer across the whole country. So there's definitely something that's going on with the number of products which are being purchased at once. So if we want to tweak the dial, and as a retailer, you want to increase your sales, we got to do it transaction by transaction. And as a brand, we need to show up in a way where if we're trying to highlight either our value or the product is more valuable than potentially other products in the market, then we want to really dial in and say, if the average price is 24 to 27, what do we need to do to communicate how we show up that's relevant to that information?
And how would you do it? Or how does one do it?
Yeah, right. Like, I think that it totally depends on the product. And it also depends on where the customer is going to intersect with that product and that information. So are we showing up at the very beginning of when a customer comes into the doors, or are we showing up closer to the cash? That's going to depend a lot on the product. And where this gets really interesting is when we start to do a basket analysis. So taking a look at what products are being purchased together starts to tell us also how these in-store displays need to amplify or can amplify those results.
And is there information about what people are buying together?
Well, we can take a look at the sales data and understand what products and what product categories get purchased most frequently together. So let's use flower as an example in Ontario. 77% of the time right now, flower is actually being purchased alone and isn't being attached to another product. And that's a massive opportunity. It's also one that has been shifting. And so if we look at the data over the last year, that number has come down, which means that historically flower was being purchased more frequently alone than it is now. And that can continue to change. Why that might continue to change is either because our consumers have changed their preferences or are open to exploring other products. We have more and other products other than just flower available in these stores at an increasing rate. Our bud tenders understand this product better, as well as have had more opportunity to work in stores and gain their own experience. And as retail environments, we're getting better. In-store displays are getting significantly better than when we first saw them come to market. And so all of those help us better communicate the value of product to our customers.
But if I'm a manager of a retail store or a brand on the other side, I look at that 77% of people buying only flower and say that's a huge chunk of people that I could I hope I'm going to use the right words. Like the attachment on that is not infinite, but it's really sizable.
Yeah, there's massive opportunity there to continue to drive this number down and attach other products. Why we would want to do that is really because we're creating a relationship with our customer that is relevant in different touch points of their life. So, for example, when we look out into other retail environments, most Canadians are familiar with Lululemon. They're all about trying to get you to purchase different products from different categories so that those products show up in other areas of your life. So, Jay, if you have shorts, they'll try and get you to get pants and a t-shirt and maybe a water bottle, all areas that are significant touch points in your life and show up in different points. Same thing with cannabis, really, is that the use case, often these products can be utilized or leveraged together, or they can be used separately in different times of somebody's life. And so what we want to be able to do is make sure that those products are being positioned at the right time that's going to be relevant to catch those customers.
Yeah. And now I think about my life. Well, the Lululemon is a really good example. It's how I ended up with Lululemon pants. Right. Because I mean, in this case, you have the size that you like, you're in Lululemon.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as simple as like, do you want fries with that? But do you want pants with that? Because you know what you're wanting. You have flour. Do you want rolling papers? Do you want a pre-rolled? Like all those things could be the next touch point, increase that basket size, attachment rate, all that. And I'm going to ask you, because you've been to so many retailers, like, that is the juicy nuggets for retailers, like how to actually do that. Because some of those products are higher profit margin. Certainly it's a customer relationship that's worth, like, all those things I think add up. Well, I'm going to ask you to a better experience all around.
Yeah, I think the pre-rolls is a really good example for to compare and contrast that to flour. Only 70% of the time pre-rolls are being purchased alone. Those products are being attached to other things more frequently. And that could be for a number of different reasons. Like Pre-rolls usually are at a different price point. And so there allows for a different basket composition to work within, kind of like our average basket rates. But we're also talking about these products in different positions in the store. If we were to kind of take a step back and look at all of the stores, these products can show up more easily right at the cash. And so instead of it just being a moment where it is like, we're talking about it earlier in the store, and then we're not giving it another touch point with our customer, these products can show up at that cash desk right as we're about to complete our decision-making process. Making sure that as a brand, the information that we're sharing is relevant and that it's not too dense, as well as for retailers, that these products are positioned in a way where the customer is still in a state where they're actively making a decision.
So the customer journey is like super important in this, physically in the customer, right? It's like from out of the store, in the store, making the purchase, the bud tender's getting a thing. And there's usually a period of time where it's like, you know, visual, like the visual elements of where it exists in not only your shopping journey, but physically is like critical, which lends the importance to the in-store display, either from the store perspective or from a brand perspective. Like there are critical times, and this is what you do. Like there must be these high points when people have made decisions or making decisions. And then like the peak when they would make more that's the point to intercept them, really. I don't know if that's the right word, intercept, but yeah.
Yeah. We can look at interception rates, for example, as when a customer interacts with something in store, but you're absolutely right. And this is what we're really good at, is taking a look at that customer journey and then saying, where is product showing up? Why is it relevant in that position? And how could we be doing a better job in a way that will amplify the average per customer, or the customer's willingness and ability to purchase it at a slightly higher price point, which allows a retailer to regain margin control, for example, or connect the right product with the right customer at the right time. So that customer journey process is really key to understanding all of these other KPIs and improving our quality of sale at store.
Yeah. And I just think about this, like from as we sort of in the middle of this event, like we're going to hear from the folks at IDG talk about the work that they do. But the real underpinning for a retailer or a brand is that there are these key moments in time in a customer journey where this is absolutely essential from a retailer perspective to have a great customer experience, but also build brand loyalty, build store loyalty. All those things are like super critical for the retailer. They're super critical for the brand because you only have so many touch points when you can actually do this. And this in store is one of them where, frankly, you have more leeway to talk about your brand than almost anywhere else in the world, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, once the customer's in the store, it's now, are we leveraging these environments to create the best relationships? And there's still opportunity. And when I start to look at how brands are showing up in store, we should be choosy on how these products are showing up and finding really great partnerships between retail and brands, because at the end of the day, it's the retailer that has to drive that conversation as well as relationship with the customer. But as brands, we could be doing a really great job in supporting these retailers, and on the reverse side, retailers supporting the brands as well. And those don't have to be monetary. Those can be other relationships that allow us to engage with our customers at a rate that feels good to them.
Yeah. And actually, I want to go back to one of the first points you made, which is there are so many more stores now than even when we started these conversations for the retail series, right? Like there's 1,000 in Ontario, maybe another 1,000 around the country. And we're in this place where brands need to be doing, I mean, I'll say brands need to be doing a better job working with retailers. Retailers, I think, want to be working with brands, but it's not the case where, I mean, not yet really, where all brands and all stores all the time. Like brands and retailers need to be more selective of this relationship that meets the demographic of the people coming into the store, the operations, all those things. And I want to ask you, like, is that relationship maturing between brand and retailer now, which really will put the emphasis also on this sort of in-store display?
Yeah, it's definitely starting to mature. I mean, there's a lot of things that impact these relationships. It's not just if the retailer and the brand can actually connect, but also like, is the product available through the provincial wholesaler with consistency? So some of this is absolutely within the control of both groups and some of it is not. And so being able to create a positive relationship that has open communication on how products are performing in store with your relevant customer is really important. And then from a brand perspective, also picking and really focusing in on retailers that are going to support kind of what you're trying to achieve. It's like we're starting to see there has to be brands and stores that start to get choosy about what products are available in those locations. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. That just means that we are thinking about our customer and what they're wanting to see and how they want to interact with our products in a different way. Because at the end of the day, having a store filled with thousands of products isn't helpful to anybody. It doesn't increase decision making for the customer, and it certainly makes it a much more complicated job for a bud tender. So we can do better. And by doing better often looks like reducing some of the numbers of SKUs or products that we've carried in store.
It's funny, it goes back to a previous conversation we had about inventory, both on the accessory side, but also on the cannabis side, like streamlining that, making it right size for your store, for your bud tenders, for your customers. It's coming back to that same point. This is a through line because I am learning along with much of our audience. So Krista, thank you. We'll connect with you a little bit later as well, but thank you for this because I think I learned a ton. And generally, if I learned something, then I hope that folks online as well have learned. So thanks.
Thanks, Jay.